Thank you. Our next one comes from Catherine Von Berg. Catherine, your line is open. I will remind you to lower your hand and you will have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Catherine Von Berg, CEO and President of Simplify Power. We design and manufacture energy storage systems deployed in over 40 countries. First comment, the report being discussed perpetuates misconceptions that all lithium-ion batteries have the same safety profile. They do not. Chemistry, form factor, size, kilowatt hours versus megawatt hours, and quality of manufacture matters. The major manufacturers of cobalt-based chemistries, NMC, NCA, some of which are on their second, third, and fourth rounds of battery recalls. In terms of safety, this issue is not addressed by the report, and certainly not by removing C46 licensed installers from being able to install battery energy storage systems. It should be noted in this discussion that the APS fire mentioned was installed by C10 electricians. So the fundamental issue really is about public safety and a well-trained workforce. So rather than preclude one group over another, C10s versus C46, improve the overall battery energy storage electrical training for both C10 and C46 license holders. As an energy storage manufacturer, we have seen mistakes made by both C10 and C46 installers, and therefore, as a company, have a rigorous training program for both classes of license holders. New technology requires new training and licensing requirements. I encourage the board to consider this in this discussion. In addition, small businesses are the economic engine for the economy. Precluding C46 from installing battery energy storage systems will have an economic impact. California is losing hundreds of millions of dollars, even billions, during power safety shutoffs. The only solution to protect residents, both homeowners and business owners, are customer-sited battery energy storage systems. Efforts should be directed at increasing training requirements for both C10 and C46 license holders, not precluding, again, one group over the other. Residents in need of backup power when utilities shut down the grid in PSPS events, and the economy overall, still crippled by COVID shutdowns and losses in the business sector, require that C46 and C10s continue to install and meet the growing demand for energy storage, in large part because of the utilities shutting off to grid to protect themselves. Simplify Power rejects the motion and encourages instead to develop upgrades and training and licensing requirements for both C10 and C46. This will serve the interests of public safety, small businesses that are the economic engine to the economy, and create the necessary distributed battery energy storage systems at homes and businesses in the face of utilities increasingly shutting off the grid.
Expired. And again, Catherine, if I can remind you to lower your hand, please. Our next commenter is calling user number 8.
Hello.
Calling user, hello. Thank you. And just as a reminder to lower your hand when you're finished, you will have 3 minutes.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Hi, my name is Gary Banta. I'm the owner of Clear Spot Energy, and I've been in the solar business since 2007, and have been doing battery energy systems for several years. I think that the UC Berkeley whole presentation was biased and also quite naive. I thought of think back to Gary Gerber, and when he took us back to the 80s, when BSS systems were a collection of parts. Today, it's not a collection of parts, they're systems. And each manufacturer, and I've used 3 different companies, require training annually for their system to be able to have their system meet the warranty. So further, you're required to, as you go from, even if you're using the same product, as the year goes by, you have to have retraining to make sure that you're fully up on each one of those products that are going out there. The systems are properly installed, and the people who are putting them in with the modern systems today have a whole completely different view of and capabilities than what was going on 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago when these systems were first put into use. So again, I'm for option 4, and I thank you for listening.
Shelley.
Yes.
This is Beltran. How many more people we got on the line?
Our next commenter is number 64 out of 82.
Okay, so we're going to ask, because this public comment is on the motion. So we're having problems with people trying to stay on the line, getting kicked off. So I would ask, as you go forward, limit your comment to, we support the motion, we oppose the motion, and the board will understand what you mean by that. I'm not a fan of WebEx, but it's what we got, and we got to try and work with it. So please, if we can do this, it probably would help us out immensely. All right, go ahead, Shelley.
Okay. Our next comment comes from Douglas Mangione. Your line is open. I will remind you to lower your hand, and you will have 3 minutes.
Thank you, board. I'm Doug Mangione, Business Development Director, Orange County. 45 years of experience, and I support the recommendations of the UC Berkeley finding when it comes to this. I support the motion and respectfully request the board act today to exclude C46 contracts from performing work where battery energy storage is paired. Thank you.
Thank you, and just a reminder to lower your hand. Our next comment comes from calling user number 39. Who I do not see is still connected, so we'll move on to Ed Murray. Ed Murray, your line is open. You will have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Board of Directors. I want to state my disapproval for this power grab from the IBEW, and they're just trying to run over the top with utility companies, running over the top of solar and distributed generation and on rooftop solar. So I respectfully ask that you vote for option 4. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next comment comes from Thomas Enslow. Thomas, your line is open. Please remember to lower your hand, and you will have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
We can.
Great. Tom Enslow on behalf of the California Statewide Association of International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. The Statewide Association supports the proposed motion. I just want to quickly address the question of whether this motion requires a regulatory action. Just a reminder, the motion has kind of 2 parts. First, it accepts the findings, and then it recommends that we, that they rescind the current policy interpretation that C46 solar contractors can install energy storage systems when paired with a solar PV system. The CSLB has issued several classification determinations stating that C46 contractors can install energy storage systems when paired with a solar PV system. including a May 14th, 2019 letter to CALSA that confirmed this is a CSLB's quote unquote policy. And these determinations continue to be applied to new projects. The findings in the UC Berkeley Labor Center report demonstrate these classification determinations were incorrect factually, legally, and from a safety policy perspective. Moreover, they were made without a regulatory action, and then applied as a general policy, which itself is arguably an improper underground regulation. Because these existing policies were not made through a regulatory process, the board has full authority to rescind this policy today without also going through a regulatory process. In fact, it must rescind this policy because it was not properly put forth in the first place. Even if the board decided to undergo a formal regulatory proceeding, that does not prevent it from immediately rescinding these prior classification determinations in the meantime and announcing that these prior policy determinations will no longer be applied. And that's what's being asked in that motion. I'd also like to underscore that requiring C46 contractors to obtain a C10 license to install energy storage systems is neither burdensome nor out of the norm.
1 minute.
It's common practice for contractors to hold multiple license classifications when they want to be qualified to perform multiple types of projects. And indeed, the majority of C46 contractors already have C10 licenses. And some of them also have roofing licenses, so they can install roofs at the same time. So why should the minority of C46 contractors who do not already have a C10 license be treated differently? That's just not how the contractor license world works in other areas. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And just as a reminder, Thomas, if you could lower your hand. Our next comment comes from Garrett Greer. Garrett, your line is open. As a reminder to lower your hand and you will have 3 minutes.
Thank you to the board for allowing me to speak. I support the motion and I hope you guys take the action today. Thank you.
Thank you. Next comment comes from calling user number 13, who is no longer on the link, Lynn Tran. All right, Lynn, I've unmuted your microphone. Please lower your hand and you will have 3 minutes.
Great, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Excellent. Well, thank you to the board for the opportunity. My name is Lynn Tran, and I'm the Director of Sales for Residential Storage Markets for LG Energy Solution. We were previously known as LG Chem, being the chemical company developing lithium batteries for over 50 years. LG Energy Solution is a tier 1 lithium battery manufacturer supplying a wide range of batteries for all sorts of applications. And it's important to note that we've shipped 35,000 units to the US so far, and we haven't been advised of any injuries from our installers since launching mid-2017. And the Resu battery is, in fact, despite some of the comments here, designed to be a standardized product that has met global safety standards that are enforced. And it is, in fact, designed to be installed simply and safely. So I've worked in the energy space for over 13 years, largely in California, and the latter half of that time, specifically in energy storage for residential home batteries. And having developed the LG's product certification and training program back in 2017, I can say that the information presented by Mr. Holstrom is lacking and generally inaccurate. If this was in addition to the errors and misinformation included in the university study. Some of the information was kindly highlighted to you by Mr. Andy Schwartz of Tesla. And coming from a battery manufacturer standpoint, this topic warrants further time to review and better understand the safety fundamentals missing in this conversation. So LG rejects the motion, and we want an opportunity to provide meaningful feedback to the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next comment comes from calling user number 35. Calling user number 35, I've unmuted your line. If I can remind you to lower your hand, and you will have 3 minutes. Calling user 35, can you hear us? I will circle back. Go to call-in user number 28. I've unmuted your line. Can you hear us? Call-in user 28?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can. If I can just remind you to lower your hand when you're finished, and you will have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Members of the board, my name is Bernie Kotlier, and I'm the Executive Director of the California and Nevada LMCC. Tesla and others have claimed no evidence of safety problems with C46 contractors. UC Berkeley made clear that there is no central repository in California for this data. We have been able to get the truth about C46 work and from the Washington Post and New York Times reports, and I quote, Walmart sued Tesla Solar City for negligence after repeated solar fires. The lawsuit states that Tesla workers were untrained, putting up shoddy installations and showing utter incompetence or callousness or both, court papers said. Walmart stated that Solar City has an ill-considered business model that required it to install solar panels haphazardly and as quickly as possible in order to turn a profit. And the contractors and subcontractors who performed the original installation work had not been properly hired, trained, or supervised. The first rooftop fire occurred here in California at a Walmart store in Long Beach in 2012. The company's complaint said, and the blazes at various other locations continued through at least the fall of 2018, over 6 years in multiple stores. Walmart quickly discovered that Tesla routinely deployed individuals to inspect the solar systems who lacked basic solar training and knowledge, and Tesla failed to properly ground the systems to decrease the risk of fire. Inspectors revealed numerous deficiencies, including exposed, hanging, and frayed wires susceptible to arcing, creating a fire risk. And on-site visits revealed that Tesla had engaged in widespread systemic negligence and had failed to abide by prudent industry practices in installing, operating, and maintaining its solar systems, conduct that greatly increased the risk of fire at Walmart sites. This is the truth about C46 contractors, the same contractors and workers who want to install energy storage, which we know is much more hazardous than solar. Thank you very much. I appreciate the board's time to listen to these comments.
Sorry about that.
Shelley, are you offline again?
Next is Karen Polstra. Karen, your line is open. You will have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Karen Polstra. I'm a C46 solar contractor in Oceanside, California. We object to the restriction of the C46 contractors regarding the BESS systems, are in favor of option 4 with no changes. For brevity reason, we concur with the arguments presented so far by Mr. Jeff Spies, Bernadette Del Chiaro, the representative of CBI, Mr. Gary Gerber of Sunlight and Power, Grid Alternatives, Barry Cinnamon, David Haskell of Symmetric Energy, especially with his comments regarding the environmental perspective, representative of Simplify Power, Ed Murray. C46 contractors are for the most part small, local, often family-owned businesses like ours. This motion will take away a major source of economic viability because solar without storage is quickly becoming a non-starter. It's infuriating and just coming out of pandemic, frankly, extremely depressing because the Labor Center's report is lacking in evidence that there is a problem to solve. We're being put into a position to prove a negative. The inference that C46 are less concerned or capable of ensuring public and worker safety is insulting, inaccurate, and unproven. In fact, if past performance is a measure, then the incidents cited in the report defy the logic that underlies this proceeding, as these systems were utility scale projects outside of California and thereby clearly not installed by C46 contractors. As to the last speaker citing untrained workers, I did not hear him mention whether those workers were C46 or C10s.
1 minute.
All in all, I'm in favor of a state repository for energy storage issues. It would be illuminating for the entire industry. Thank you.
Thank you. And Barbara McLaren has indicated she has fixed her audio feed, so I'm going to circle back to her. Barbara, your line is open. I'll remind you to lower your hand and you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
We can.
Perfect. Good. Hello, board members. My name is Barbara McLaren, and I'm a distributed and sustainable energy advocate. I'm asking you to please preclude C46 contractors from installing battery energy storage systems paired with photovoltaic systems. The adoption of battery energy storage is difficult enough without having to worry about the qualifications of the contractors involved. C46 contractors do not have a trained and certified workforce to install and maintain storage batteries safely. All of our battery market installation capacity must be fully qualified. Otherwise, we will not see the adoption of these technologies we need as a state. Please do not delay. Vote for this today to restrict the C46 license holders from installing battery energy storage systems paired with photovoltaic systems. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And our next comment comes from Joe Kane. Joe, your line is open. Please remember to lower your hand and you will have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Joe Kane. I am a California licensed professional engineer dedicated to the solar industry since 2008. I think you've heard a lot about the bias of the report. It seems that the conclusion was predetermined before the research was done. In May of 2019, the U.S. surpassed 2 million total solar installations nationwide. Only 2 years later, in the midst of a pandemic, the U.S. surpassed 3 million total PV installations in May or June of 2021. The importance of BESS paired with PV has become much more evident in recent years, even within the years-long time frame of this action by CSLB. With each grid power outage, planned or otherwise, homeowners still have a need to run their CPAP machines or other medical devices, to freeze or refrigerate foods and medicines, and to charge their phones to maintain basic communications for emergencies. PV plus BESS can fulfill these basic human needs. The importance of BESS paired with PV is specifically recognized by the California Energy Commission, as the CEC has created new requirements for a residential BESS ready mandatory measure in the 2022 standards. Considering national, state, and local goals for ESS, it is critical to remove barriers to rapid deployment of PV and BESS, not to create new barriers. We have heard a lot of scare words in the report and in testimony today. The presenter from the Labor Center correctly stated that the IFC, IRC, and NFPA 855 all reference and require testing and listening to UL 9540. As the 9540 and 95480A standards have matured, BESS has become more safe, not less safe. I agree with the previous testifier that BESS safety is assured primarily within the product itself when tested and listed according to these product safety standards. The 2019 California Fire Code and the 2019 California Residential Code are now further improved with the July 1, 2021 supplement. The July 1 supplement made California an early adopter of the additional safety provisions included in the 2021 International Residential Code section R328. Improved and matured codes and standards should not be presented as something scary that can only be comprehended by the holder of a C10. Improved codes and standards mean improved safety for everyone. No matter what profession we are engaged in, we all have a first day and a first time. There is no evidence that a C10 contractor installing residential BESS for the first time is more of a qualified individual than a C46 contractor installing BESS for the 100th time. The US DOE now has a solar ready vote vets program. Are we going to exclude California. CSLB should do no harm today. Please do not create new barriers to rapid deployment.
10 seconds.
Please reject the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. And if you could just lower your hand, please. And our next comment comes from Steve Sharp. Steve, I see you have two connections. I'm going to pick one. Can you hear me? Let me unmute your other one. Let's try this one. Steve Sharp?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay. We can hear you. It's your turn, and you will have 3 minutes.
Great. Yeah, I oppose the changes. I'm a small-time one-man crew solar contractor. I've been doing solar for 40 years. I've been doing solar electric for 15 years, and I have one crew that works for me, and they were trained by me, and I work off the C46 license. So I checked in during this meeting. I started checking into the C10 to see what it would take to get the C10, and they said I need the 4 years of journeyman experience. So I called California Contractors Board, and they said what I have does not qualify. I can't self-qualify myself. I would have to work for a licensed contractor doing C10 work for 4 years before I could even qualify for a license. So that just puts me out of the market. I just have to, because solar electric without battery these days is not going to pay off. So I just ask you guys to please look into it a little bit further and vote no to, or at least to move on and check it out a little bit further. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Next comment comes from Zoe Vanderschmidt. Zoe, your line is open. You will have 3 minutes.
Hi there. Thank you very much for allowing time for public comments. I work for Tree Public, and we are a C46-led company that's been in business for 10 years. We strongly oppose the motion 2, and we are a platinum Enphase installer that's extremely experienced in battery and energy storage, and we feel that this will be a real damage to the industry and to the cause of defeating climate change in general. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next is Bart Dixon. Bart, your line is open. If I can remind you to lower your hand, and you will have 3 minutes.
All right, thank you. My name is Bart Dixon. I work with contractors in the Los Angeles area, many who install PV and battery energy storage. I'm speaking today in support of the motion and urge the board to take action today to vote to restrict those contractors who only hold a C46 license to solar PV only. One thing I'd like to point out is that comments had been made today claiming that the UC Berkeley team did not get expert code input for their report. Wanted to point out those claims are false. Just 2 of the experts involved are, for example, Michael Johnson, who is the immediate past chairman and currently the principal member of the NEC Correlating Committee and an active member of the NFPA Standards Council. Also James Dollard, who is a past member of the Electrical Code Correlating Committee and a member and past member of several code-making panels over several cycles. So the UC Berkeley report did get appropriate expert code input. We support it, and we urge you to take this action today. Thank you.
Thank you. And just as a reminder to lower your hand, please. Our next comment comes from call-in user number 60. Call-in user number 60, I have unmuted your microphone. Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
We can. If I can just remind you to lower your hand, and you will have a 3-minute limit.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, board members. My name is Pete Marsh. I'm a C46 license holder, the founder and CEO of Vector Green Power and Materials. I strongly oppose the motion on the floor, and I urge you to please make no change to the C46 authorized scope of work. In general, I'm a huge fan of UC Berkeley. I was born there while my dad was earning his doctorate in zoology, and they were on my short list for my own undergraduate degree. I instead earned Bachelor's of Science from the U.S. Coast Guard Academy and a Master of Science later on. First, I'll quickly express support for previous comments from Jeff Mathias, Bernadette Del Chiro, Jeff Spies, Gary Gerber, Tesla, Freedom Forever, Barry Cinnamon, Duncan Clement Shaw, and the others who have eloquently pointed out that this is a solution in search of a problem. We're really talking about a non-issue here because despite my high regard for UC Berkeley as an institution, this report does not live up to their stellar reputation. It basically constitutes a poorly veiled attempt at science washing of a predetermined conclusion. Before founding my solar company to help solve the climate crisis, I spent several years managing research and development projects for the Department of Homeland Security while with the highly regarded defense contractor Booz Allen Hamilton. In this role, I assembled and led skilled teams of properly qualified and experienced researchers. I edited their draft and final reports, presented those reports to review boards, including peer review, blatantly missing from this process. Two of the most important things I did were selecting experts whose credentials were relevant to the work and then scrutinizing their methodological approaches. This report would quickly be rejected by me and my former employer for violating both of those. There's a labor expert, an economist, and a retiree whose stated expertise is in the chemical industry, not the electrical industry.
1 minute.
Reporting a comment on electrical safety. Their methodology, which boils down to they could not find data documenting actual safety problems, so they read the list of hazards and warnings from the lawyer's section of the installation manual. Mr. Holmes's main qualification appears to be to read those warnings in an ominous sounding voice. So let's see. One last obvious logic flaw. The motion says that A licenses, B or C10 should be allowed to install, but after criticizing C46 for lack of training, but
15
there's no
seconds.
training at all required for architects or engineers or general contractors in electrical. It's laughable. I urge you to make no change. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next comment comes from Eddie Bernacci. Eddie, your line is open. I'll remind you to lower your hand and you have a maximum of 3 minutes.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, great. Thank you. Eddie Bernacchi on behalf of the National Electrical Contractors Association and its 2,000 plus California-based C10 and C46 contractors. Out of respect for the chair, I'm going to keep this very short. I just want to make a few points to the board members who are concerned with acting on the motion today. First is the current CSLB regulatory definition of the C46 classification is extremely restrictive. And it's not, and in its plain reading, currently prohibits the C46 from performing any other specialty craft that is not required, and I'll say that again, not required to install a photovoltaic system. California Electrical and Fire Codes consider BESS separate electrical systems. State utilities consider battery energy storage systems as separate systems, as they can be connected to power sources other than photovoltaic power. And California building officials consider battery energy storage systems separate systems. So the current board policy that allows the separate electrical systems to be installed under the C46 license with solar installations is itself an underground regulation and exposes the board to litigation. The board is well within its rights to act today and provide clarity on a policy that was implemented through license creep at the testing level and through board interpretation. Also regarding labor shortage, the motion on the table would not limit the ability of a C46 contractor that obtains a C10 license to utilize workers other than certified electricians to perform work that is not the electrical connections associated with battery energy storage system installations. This is a very common practice in the energy sector, and would not be impacted by the motion that's on the table. And finally, as I mentioned earlier, nothing prohibits the C46 licensee from obtaining a C10 license. And we did hear that there may be some confusion there on the applicability of this to some small contractors.
1 minute.
But Registrar Foat has made it clear that the board staff will do everything possible to assist with those C46 licensees that would like to obtain a C10 license. So with that, it's been a 4-year process. All the stakeholders have had ample time to provide information and comments. Board commissioned an independent consultant to provide a recommendation. They've done so based on fact and input from all stakeholders. And with that, we'd urge you to act today, adopt the motion that's before you, and do what's right. Restrict the C46 licensees from installing these separate energy systems. Thank you.
Thank you. And let's see, our next comment comes from Richard Lawrence. Richard, your line is open. As a reminder, please lower your hand when you're finished, and you will have 3 minutes.
Hi, thank you. Richard Lawrence. I've been in the renewable energy industry for going on 20 years now, working in workforce development, training, education, also personnel certifications and quality assurance. Currently as the program director for the Interstate Renewable Energy Council. Strongly recommend that the current motion is opposed. I want to start off by saying that battery energy storage systems have always been a part of solar equipment systems. This is the technology that C46 is licensed to install. This is what they do. They install solar, they install battery as part of that. These systems have always been included storage. Go back to the beginning when they were powering satellites, when they were powering remote operations throughout California in the early solar days and pioneers. There's, more recently now, they're becoming a growing part of the systems again, but they've always been included, and this has always been something that solar installers have been charged with doing. This was at the same time when these licenses were developed, and this is what they should be talked about. As a previous caller talked about with doctors and looking at specializations, the best way to get somebody qualified to do the job is somebody who's specialized in that. And this is what the C46 license holders does. C10 certainly can get training, have performed well. I do point out as well that, solar equipment themselves are dangerous. These same arguments around the safety of the equipment have been made from the very beginning of this conversation, yet C46 are allowed to install those. The example that was brought up earlier of Solar City and Walmart, Solar City, now Tesla, as indicated by the report, is a C10 contractor. So these problems were with a C10 contractor, not with a C46. If there are issues with contractors and their inability to perform license, or the work that they do, that is the job of the board. But in determining what it is, this is defined. This is what the systems, it's an integrated part of the system. Energy storage always has been an integrated part of the system. While it is also unsafe, solar is unsafe, and that is what these contractors are licensed to install. If there's issues with that, it does sound like there's some things that need to be done. For example, to improve the quality of the training that C10 and C46 license gets. There are some things that could be done. The work does report to that, but now is not the time to restrict who can perform this work. Now is the time to expand it. As stated before, there's critical workforce shortages right now, particularly with licensed electricians to do this clean energy work. There's a climate crisis that we need to address. Thank you. Please block that motion.
Thank you. And as a reminder, just to lower your hand, our next comment comes from Olu Hairston. Olu, your line is open.
Hello, calling in from Tree Public. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, thank you. I'm calling in from Tree Public. My name is Olu Hairston, and I oppose the motion because I think solar installers, that is the C46 installers, are more experienced. And I think they are able to handle energy storage more than the regular C10, but I think maybe they can introduce some kind of training so that everybody can do the job. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next comment comes from call-in user number 78. Okay, call-in user number 78. I've unmuted your microphone. As a reminder, please lower your hand and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hello, is this for me?
Yeah, are you? Yes, this is you. It's your turn.
Yeah, good. Okay, I didn't know. Thank you very much. It's time for me to speak then. Thank you. Hi, my name is Janine Cotter. I'm the C46 license qualifier for Luminalt. Since 2004, we've installed thousands of solar systems and hundreds of battery-paired solar systems across the Bay Area. And I am calling in strong opposition to the motion. Solar paired storage is a single system. Solar powers the battery, and when the power goes out, the solar kicks in and islands. And when the power comes back on, the solar is turned off, goes back on, and continues to power the house or the battery. They are paired systems, and they work together in concert. Richard Lawrence was spot on when he said that when the license classification was established, paired storage with solar was necessary. In 1981, when my husband installed his first solar system, the inverter wouldn't work without a lead acid battery pack. Solar and storage has been within the purview of the C46 since its inception. The other point that I would like to raise is that Luminalt has always been at the forefront of diversity in workforce development. Luminalt is majority woman owned, and we have worked strongly in concert with workforce development departments across the greater Bay Area. For identification purposes, I'm a member of the Workforce Incentive Workforce Development Board in San Francisco. And Luminalt was the first installer to participate in San Francisco's Go Solar SF, where we hired folks through workforce diversity programs. Though many of those individuals remain employed, one has become a certified electrician, but everyone else who came through that pathway is not a certified electrician, but they install solar paired storage every single day. They are talented specialists, and they reflect the diversity and breadth of the Bay Area and California. This would drastically impact gender equality and racial equality within the solar and storage industry. And it is a mistake at a time that California is burning and we have a workforce shortage. Thank you.
Thank you. And calling user 70, if I can just remind you to lower your hand. Our next comment comes from Matthew Walker. Matthew, your line is open. You will have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Matthew Walker, and I work for Simplify Power. It's important to note that additional public safety power shutoff events are planned for this year and the foreseeable future, causing BESS systems to be increasingly demanded and far more important for the safety of homeowners who need to keep critical medical devices running during these outages. I'd also like to point out that this measure proposes only a 90-day timeline to make all changes to the workforce. This is an extremely short timeline to make major changes to the layout of workforces of many small and large installers alike, especially considering the additional struggle of the current labor shortage. Now, this is a time to be increasing the amount of installations that our existing workforce can perform, not a time to be adding barriers. So I ask that the board reject the motion on the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. And our next comment, I'm going to circle back to calling user 18. Calling user 18, I have unmuted your microphone. Can you hear us?
Hello?
Hello, it is your turn. You will have 3 minutes. And if I could just remind you to lower your hand when you're finished.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, board members. My name is Nate Otto, president of Hot Purple Energy. I've held a contractor's license for 30 years, and I am opposed to the motion being considered by the board. I want to thank the people at Berkeley that worked so hard on their report. Everyone on both sides of this issue believes that safety for our workers and the public is priority. I do agree with others that the Berkeley report was created in a vacuum of academia and not with the help of the industry in question. I don't agree with their findings. They are false, or at the very least heavily skewed, especially on the licensing of the installers, labor numbers, availability of the labor force, and costs associated with the changes they recommended. I would like to point out another very obvious but overlooked avenue to ensure the safety of everyone involved and the economics that make solar and storage acceptable for the end user. And that point was inadvertently brought up by board member Nancy Sanger, where she mentioned the 70+ years the C10 license has been around and the many updates to the code and training that have been ensued since then, and that the C46 has been around for only 40 years and no updates. She mentioned that separate sections that the BESS and solar have in the code book apart from the electrical code. Let's look at that. The code book, the CSLB board, and the electricians themselves all see BESS and PV separate and very different skills than from the wide variety of electrical work that C10s do. With this in mind, the speciality of BESS and PV, the rapidly changing technology, requires a dedicated contractor to keep on top of the technology, and that is the C46 contractor that is involved with the specific technologies we are discussing. I disagree that C46 should not be allowed to install BESS. The opposite is true. The CSLB should encourage and support the specialty industry that is the C46 contractors and what they have evolved into. They should support it with training and updates similar to what they have done for the C10 classifications, as electrical requirements have changed since the 1940s. If the evidence or simply prudence shows the need for added training, or even the addition of a rider or certificate required for C46 contractors to install BESS, this should be the solution being looked at. This would keep the workforce in place, honor the businesses that have been built around the industry, and help advance the technology that no other licenses have done. This solves the safety issues without undue disruption in the industry or pressures on the inexperienced C10 contractors to catch up with the technology at a stage where rapid adoption of solar and storage is needed for the safety and health of California residents.
10 seconds.
Please don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. And as a postscript, there's no way that 90 days would be enough in today's post-COVID labor market for C46 contractors to make the switch. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And as a reminder, just to lower your hand, and then we are down to our last commenter, call-in user number 35. I have unmuted your microphone. Can you hear us? User identified as call-in user 35 within WebEx. I've unmuted your microphone. We can. Go ahead. You'll have 3 minutes.
Okay, great. Didn't know if I was 35. Wish I was once again. I'm Don Osborne, president of Spectrum Energy Development Incorporated. We are a C10 licensed company. We have been doing solar as Spectrum since 2002. Prior to that, I was superintendent of renewable resources at SMUD. I ran the SMUD solar program and other energy programs. I've been in this professionally in solar since 1976. So I've seen the industry grow and mature to what we have today. I strongly oppose the motion before you. You've heard many, many reasons why. I will just simply add my comments to that. It is clear that solar plus storage as an integrated package is the future, is today, and is the future of storage in California. It is vital that when a solar plus storage system goes in, that it goes in as an integrated package. It needs to be plug and play. The control systems, the inverters, all of this interact with each other between the solar and the storage system. While it's surely possible to put in a storage system separately, and you can have two different contractors do each component, that is not in the benefit of the customer nor that of the grid at large. So for safety reasons, for economic reasons, for labor reasons, I ask you to reject this proposal before you today. Thank you.
Thank you. And we do have one more individual that we lost a little earlier who is back. Tommy, and Tommy, I'm not going to try and pronounce your last name. I apologize. Your line is open. You will have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Shelley. Good afternoon, board chair and board members. And I'm in respect to the board chair on his wishes to keep comments short. My name is Tommy Favai. I represent the business development side in Los Angeles when it comes to the energy sector. We in the industry we need your assistance to increase market acceptance of energy storage by reducing risk to people, property, financing, and insurance for the health of our industry, and act on the UC Berkeley report, which states that we strongly recommend that the CSLB limit the scope of the C46 to its original scope and preclude C46 license holders from installing BESS, even when paired with solar, unless they hold another license under which BESS installation is permitted. We asked the board to follow the recommendation of the board member of his motion today, and to accept the action and study recommendations from UC Berkeley for being very thorough and factual. Thank you.
Thank you. And board, with that, that concludes our request for comments.
Well, thank you very much, Shelley. And thank you to all those who commented today. I want to double check to make sure Kevin, Mary, and Don are on the phone. Kevin, if you're on the phone, can you say you're on?
I would probably need them to raise their hand so that I could identify them in the attendee list.
Okay, so Kevin and Mary and Don, if you're on the phone, please raise your hand.
This is Don. I'm actually calling through Tanya's cell phone.
Okay. Mary and Kevin, are you on?
I'm not seeing any hand raises. It might be that they don't know how to find the hand raise on their phone. That is always a possibility.
Okay, so I want to double check that we still have a quorum. So Kayla, can you do roll call, please?
Susan Granzella?
Here.
Kevin Albanese? Frank Altamura?
Here.
Augie Beltran?
I'm here.
Rodney Kobos?
Here.
David De La Torre?
Here.
Miguel Galarza?
Here.
Donald Geritano?
Here.
Diana Love?
Here.
Michael Mark?
Here.
James Rain?
Here.
Johnny Simpson?
Here.
Nancy Springer?
Here.
Mary Tykert? Not here.
Cal, this is Dave Fote. Kevin Albanese has stated that he is participating, although he's not sure how to do it other than through my phone.
David, what we're going to do is when we call for a roll call vote, I want you will he will contact you and tell you how he votes. Is that legal, attorney, counselor?
Yes, it should be fine.
Okay.
And also Mary Tyker is going to do the same thing, I believe.
Okay, so when we call their name for the roll call, David, you will acknowledge what their vote is.
Okay.
Kayla, does it look like we have a quorum?
Yes.
Okay, so board members, at the risk of going any further than we have to, are there any questions? I don't see any hands. With that, Kayla, please call roll on the motion.
Okay, Susan Granzella,
Aye.
Kevin Albanese. Dave.
1 second. He's responding.
Okay.
No.
Okay, Frank Altamura,
No.
Augie Beltran,
Yes.
Rodney Kobos,
Yes.
David De La Torre,
Aye.
Miguel Galarza,
Yes.
Donald Geratano,
Yes.
Diana Love,
Yes.
Michael Mark,
Yes.
James Rain,
Yes.
Johnny Simpson,
Yes.
Nancy Springer,
Yes.
Mary Tykert.
Mary Tyker is a no.
Okay, so the motion carries 11-3.
Thank you very much, Kayla.
Uh-huh.
With that, Board Chair Granzella, that concludes our agenda item, and I turn the board back to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Board Member Augie Beltran. An amazing oversight for a very important issue for the board. So this concludes our board business for today. Can I please get a motion to adjourn the board?
So moved.
Second.
Who is it? So who moved?
Me, Augie.
Oh.
Nancy,
All right.
second.
Great. There is no roll call, so the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank
Have
you.
a good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.